The injury update that we were waiting and expecting just happened. Zach LaVine has now been recalled from the Windy City Bulls. We're going to talk about it all and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize. More importantly, let's go ahead and get into this content. And so Zach LaVine has just been recalled from the Windy City Bulls, indicating that he cleared that last hurdle and responded pretty well to it, which means that we could very well see Zach LaVine be made available for tomorrow's game against the Charlotte Hornets. This is a return that people are really starting to wait for and to see how it's going to work out. And so at the end of the day, right now, when it comes down to it, Zach LaVine returning to the Chicago Bulls is kind of the best case for everyone. And I know some Bulls fans are really kind of worried and concerned about Zach LaVine being a ball hog and all this stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, the Bulls are still motivated to trade Zach LaVine. And per his representation, he still wants to be moved as well. And the best thing for all parties is Zach LaVine comes back and plays well and looks pretty solid in that play. And so if Zach LaVine can play and the Bulls can keep their winning ways going, even though they're on a 2-game losing streak, that could help facilitate that trade a lot for the Chicago Bulls. So this is a big step for the Chicago Bulls and what it means for that. So now Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic have both been upgraded to questionable for tomorrow's game. Now, keep in mind, Nikola Vucevic, who coming into yesterday was kind of looked at as it was a little concerning. He had a really good practice, responded pretty well. Zach LaVine cleared that last hurdle for him to come back, and so now Zach LaVine looks to be poised to make his return for the Chicago Bulls tomorrow against the Charlotte Hornets. And like I said, all eyes are going to be on this and what it means for the Chicago Bulls. How Zach LaVine plays upon his return. Does he fit in with this team and the way they're trying to play? Does the ball stop? Do we see heavy isolation ball? All those things are going to be things that everybody's kind of looking out for to see how this gets affected. And best believe anybody that has even any type of waning interest in Zach LaVine is going to be watching his return and see how he plays upon that return, because if he does come back, plays really well, which we've seen him do again in like the 14-9 stretch at the end of last season. If Zach comes in and fits in with what the Bulls are doing and the Bulls win, the Bulls who clearly needed an additional 20-point scorer in their last few games is somebody that can help with the depth of that team being out. Vooch and Zach returning. Hopefully the Bulls in a weaker part of their schedule can get back to winning. But then on top of that, you got to look at the benefits of how that's going to help facilitate a trade for Zach LaVine. And overall, too, as well, do not overlook the fact that if Zach LaVine comes back to this team and this team does win and wins with him playing a big part of it, and the style of play is better with that, and it fits in, there's not outside the realm of possibility that Zach maybe does end up staying a Chicago Bull for the rest of the year, and they try to worry about that trade at the end of the season. Again, that's all speculative. We'll see how that happens and how that shakes out with the Chicago Bulls and Zach LaVine going forward. But at least right now, we know that Zach LaVine has been cleared to return for the Chicago Bulls. This was, like I said, this has been expected. Billy Donovan has been alluding to this for the better part of about 3 or 4 days at this point. And so right now, we're looking at it and saying nobody's expecting Zach LaVine to rescue the Chicago Bulls, right? I want to be clear on that. Nobody's looking for him, but we are looking for Zach LaVine to come back and be what he can be. And that is an efficient 3-level scorer for the Chicago Bulls that does play better off catch and shoots. And we talked about the numbers, how the Bulls are running more catch and shoots, how the ball's moving around a little bit more freely. If those things start slowing down, it's going to be glaring that Zach LaVine wasn't able to fit in with what the Chicago Bulls are doing. It's going to be, and I think teams are going to be watching out for that as well. How Zach LaVine comes in and plays and tries to fit into what the Bulls are doing, or does he come back and try to be Zach LaVine? And that, again, for teams that are looking for Zach, anybody who's rumored to be interested in Zach really would be adding him as a secondary, even third scorer in some cases. And so to see how he fits in on a team that has been winning more than they've been losing, playing a different style of basketball since he's been down, it's going to be really telling how that fits in. So all progress is pointed to. Everything Billy Donovan said has basically happened now. And now it's just waiting for the official word that Zach LaVine will be available in tomorrow night's game against the Charlotte Hornets. But not too worried about that. I expect that to be happening sooner rather than later. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.